Aloha and good morning, everyone. It is Thursday, March 5th, 2026, and the time is 9:01 a.m. Will the Committee on Zoning and Planning meeting please come to order? I would like to welcome committee members, Councilmember Cordero, Councilmember Okimoto, and Councilmember Tupola. I understand Vice Chair Waters should be here shortly. Although remote verbal testimony is being permitted, this is a regular in-person meeting and not a remote meeting by interactive conference technology under HRS Section 92-3.7. Therefore, the meeting will continue with notwithstanding loss of audiovisual communication with remote testifiers or loss of the public broadcast of the meeting. Members of the public will be allowed to provide verbal testimony on all items on the agenda when each item is taken up in two ways: in person and remotely via video conference or phone. Before testifying, each person shall state their name for the record. Each speaker may not have anyone else read their statement and will be limited to a 1-minute presentation per item. All persons who register to testify in person will be called upon first. Persons who did not register will be given an opportunity to offer testimony after the registered testifiers. Once in-person testimony has concluded, I will proceed to the remote testifiers. When I call your name or the last 3 digits of your phone number, please follow the prompts to unmute. As both English and Hawaiian are official languages of the state of Hawaii, pursuant to Article 15, Section 4 of the Hawaii State Constitution and Section 113 of the Hawaii Revised Statutes, members of the public may testify in either language. For verbal testimonies offered in Olelo, Hawaii, additional time as may be necessary will be allowed for the testifier to provide an English translation of their testimony. Written testimonies, including the testifier's address, email address, and phone number, will be available to the public as described in the posted agenda. As a courtesy, please turn off or silence all cell phones for the duration of this meeting. Thank you. For your information, item number 4, Bill 70, 2026, CD1 on page 5, the agenda has been canceled and will not be considered. Moving to agenda item number 1 for action, the committee will review and evaluate the Planning Commission and make recommendations to the council on whether the charter provisions establishing the commission should be retained, amended, or repealed. We will be reviewing and evaluating the Planning Commission pursuant to Ordinance 17-44, codified as ROH Chapter 3, Article 15, which mandates the periodic review and evaluation of certain city boards and commissions. The purpose of the review and evaluation is to determine whether the provisions of the city charter establishing the commission should be retained, amended, or repealed. The commission was established by Charter Section 6-1505 and 6-1506 and has the following powers, duties, and functions. First, they are to advise the mayor, the council, and the director of planning and permitting on matters concerning the planning program. Second, hold public hearings and make recommendations on all proposals to adopt or amend the general plan, development plans, and zoning ordinances. And third, perform other related duties as may be necessary to fulfill its responsibilities under the charter or as may be assigned by the mayor or the council. The commission consists of 9 members, appointed by the mayor and confirmed by the council to staggered 5-year terms. At least 1 commission member must have substantial experience or expertise in one of the following categories of disciplines. Each of the categories must be represented by a different member, and all categories must be represented on the commission. First, someone with Native Hawaiian traditional and customary practices, Native Hawaiian law, or traditional Hawaiian land usage. Second, someone with land use planning, policies, and principles. Third, someone with land development and construction background. And fourth, someone with climate change and sea level rise cause effects and solutions or environmental protection and preservation. By Departmental Communication 57-2026, dated January 30th, 2026, the Commission submitted to the Council an updated report on its accomplishments and activities. The Commission recommended that charter provisions establishing the Commission to be retained without change, but recommended that erroneous provision in ROH Section 22-3.5 be amended to provide that the Director of Planning and Permitting, not the Commission, is responsible for adopting rules governing the subdivision or consolidation of land. I will take the Commission's suggestions under consideration and note that any changes to the subdivision ordinance require processing by the Department of Planning and Permitting, but not by the Planning Commission. I will be recommending that action on this matter be postponed until the next committee meeting on April 2nd. In the meantime, I will prepare a draft committee report with recommendations for consideration at that meeting. Joining us in the council chambers is Pane Meatoga III, Chair of the Planning Commission, who will summarize the commission's report and provide some comments. Is the chair or anybody from the Planning Commission here? From the administration, can I have someone representing the administration? Don Takuchi-Apuna, Director of the Department of Planning and Permitting.
Good morning, Chair, members, Don Apuna, DPP. So, did you want me to comment on the report?
Yes.
Sure. So I think this is a routine report that the Planning Commission provides to the council. It gives an idea of the last few years, what some of the dockets that they've been looking at. I think there was one concern about the staffing from the Corporation Council and the Secretary. And we have been looking at that as far as the Secretary, looking at increasing her pay, but she is kind of capped out based on her current duties. So we're looking at that, but also maybe providing her with like an office assistant to help take some of that load off. But other than that, yeah, if you have any questions about the report itself.
Okay, I do have a question on the position. So are you able to use current vacancies to secure any additional staffing that you need, or will you need for the council to add any new positions in the upcoming budgetary cycle?
I would have to go back and see if that's something that we would need to add, like an office assistant. Yeah.
Okay, separate from the office assistant, is there any other type of resources that could strengthen the capacity, like the Corp Council? Wasn't there a comment about the fact that the Corp Council has to do so many other things?
Yeah, and I would defer to Corporation Council for how they would manage their workload for their deputies.
Can I ask you or Corporation Council, is it better fit? I mean, the Planning Commission is a kind of significant commission. Is it better to have your own legal counsel for the Planning Commission? Either one of you can answer.
Dwayne Payne, Deputy Corporation Counsel. We have a dedicated deputy for the Planning Commission.
Yeah, but what are their other duties?
Like all deputies, we have a numerous amount of duties. We don't think that the Planning Commission has sufficient resources or responsibilities so that we can just dedicate one deputy.
Can you at least look at the concerns expressed by the Planning Commission?
I will discuss that with my
because there is concerns expressed that because they have so many other duties, adequate probably timing is not given to the Planning Commission. I just want to make sure that since we're in the throes of the budget, we're going to start our budget hearing next week.
Sure.
You know how I am. Whether
Yes.
it's in your budget or not, you deal with it now, not later.
Yes.
Because what's the sense of having recommendations when we don't act on them, okay?
I will look at that.
Members, any questions? Councilmember Cordero.
Thank you, Chair Kiaʻāina. My question is not for Corporation Council. Am I able to call up the DPP back? Thank you. Hi, Director. I do have a question as it relates to routinely, I know there were concerns about attendance and making quorum, and not just this commission, but at especially the Planning Commission, though, back in the day. Is that cause for problem now, or are we able to meet the different 4 or 5 meetings that has been necessary for the Planning Commission?
You know, I haven't heard too many issues about getting quorum. I think that's always an issue, though, for any board. These are volunteers, and it's a struggle because I know they have busy lives, and being ready and being available isn't always easy. So we continue to look to fill any vacancies for all of the boards. But I don't think for Planning Commission, I think it's always an issue, and it's not extreme right now, but making sure that we fill the vacancies is really important. So people in the public who are interested and qualified, they should think about volunteering.
Thank you. And Director, I know that you're not on the commission, and I know that you relay that to the board itself. And I know that the chair is postponing this until a future meeting date, so I probably will ask the chair then. But I was going to ask whether or not how they determine which plans and which items to hold on for a longer period of time. I know that during the Halava Pro City TOD plan, or was it the zoning plan, that was held a bit longer with comments from the Halava community, which is an area I represent. And while others seem to come back directly to us with I guess, changes that weren't implemented by the resolutions that the council adopted, and a lot of work then has to be done either in any of the subject matter committees, but especially the zoning committee. So I just wanted to ask them that question if they possibly watch this in the future, but also if you happen to have a response to that.
Yeah, I'm not aware of the details of that, but I would just assume that they're trying to get more information, or, you know, they might be waiting on gathering information in order to move things forward. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. We haven't seen a lot of, I guess, busy work that needed to be done now, but even just a year or even 2 years ago, that was quite a problem that I know Chair Kiaʻāina raised a lot during our zoning hearing. So thank you.
Thank you for the
Chair.
question, Councilmember Cordero. A few years ago, when we did have a problem with making quorum, I stated at the time, and I still believe, that while they are volunteers, there's a lot of people who want to be on the Planning Commission. And I feel that it's up to the chair of the commission that after X amount of absences, we really need to ask the members whether they should still remain, because we can't have a planning commission that's not fully functioning. I think statewide, one of the greatest concerns for projects moving forward, not just commercial projects, but residential projects, is the burial councils. And they are having a very, very difficult time just historically and even now. And I really think there needs to be an alternative mechanism should they not get quorum to be able to render a decision, because a lot of projects are being held up. Okay, if there's no other questions, welcome, Councilmember Dos Santos Tam. No other questions, thank you. We will now take public testimony, proceeding first with in-person testimony in the council chamber. Clerks, do we have any in-person testifiers?
Chair, there are none.
Are there any testifiers remotely?
Chair, there are none.
The chair recommends that action on this matter be postponed until the next scheduled meeting of the committee on April 2nd, 2026. In the interim, the chair will take the matter under advisement and prepare a draft report with recommendations for consideration at that meeting. Any discussion, any objections or reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Moving to agenda item number 2, resolution 26-27. This resolution grants a special management area major permit to the Kinishida Group Company to allow for the construction of a one-story single-unit dwelling detached covered cabana with wet bar and bathroom, 2-car opening parking area off the existing driveway, in-ground swimming pool with water feature, and at-grade spa on 2 jointly developing zoning lots, totaling approximately 55,798 square feet of land zone R5 residential district, consisting of an approximately 25,000 square foot non-shoreline lot located at 4669 Kahala Avenue and identified as tax map key 3500508, and approximately 30,790 square foot shoreline lot located at 4671 Kahala Avenue and identified as tax map key 3500505 in Waialae, Kahala. We have posted on the agenda a CD1 version of the resolution, which I submitted. For your information, a summary of the amendments is listed on the agenda. I'm proposing 2 verbal amendments requested by the Department of Planning and Permitting to Condition F of the CD1 relating to impacts to archaeological, historic, and cultural resources that may be present on the project site. In Condition F3, replace the reference iwi kupuna with human burials, comma, including iwi kupuna, which are Native Hawaiian ancestral remains, Also, in the last sentence of condition F, delete the phrase, "and all mitigation protocols approved or otherwise required by SHPT," so the sentence reads, "The requirement enumerated in this condition must be clearly stated under environmental notes on all projects, construction permit plans, and building permit plans. The two zoning lots are jointly developed and are therefore considered one zoning lot for development purposes. The project's new construction will occur on Parcel 8, which is the Mauka lot and is primarily undeveloped. Parcel 5, which is the shoreline lot, is developed with a two-story, single-unit dwelling, in-ground pool and spa, fish pond, and fencing. 2 single dwelling units are allowed on the 55,798 square foot jointly developed zoning lot. Approximately 80% of Parcel 5 will be impacted by 3.2 feet of sea level rise by the year 2100, but Parcel 8 is outside of the sea level rise exposure area. While the project site has an erosion rate of 0.67 per year, the erosion rate based setback calculation does not apply to the primary urban center development plan area. So the shoreline setback for the project site is 75 feet without a current certified shoreline survey. All project structures are set back 230 feet from the shoreline and are located outside of the sea level rise exposure area. Approximately 60% of Parcel 8 is within flood zone AE, and approximately 35% of Parcel 8 is within flood zone AO. Both flood zone categories are fringe flood areas that are within the flood hazard area and must comply with the special flood hazard requirements of ROH Chapter 21A. The dwelling will be elevated approximately 8.5 feet above mean sea level, which is above the highest required base flood elevation of 8 feet. Condition C2 of the proposed CD1 requires the applicant to acknowledge and take responsibility for the cleanup and restoration of the project site in the event of coastal hazard-related loss of property. Prior archaeological research identified iwi kupuna in the area surrounding the project site. Kiaʻāina prepared an archaeological literature review and field inspection report for the project site, which recommended that the applicant prepare an archaeological inventory survey with subsurface testing for the project site. The applicant has hired Kiaʻāina to conduct the survey. Condition F of the proposed CD1 includes conditions requiring the applicant to submit to DPP a copy of the division's written acceptance of the project's archaeological inventory survey and to implement all mitigation protocols approved or otherwise required by the division. The project proposes to excavate approximately 501 cubic yards of soil material, which will be used as infill across the project site. No importation of soil fill material is proposed. Approximately 22 cubic yards of structural fill material is proposed to be imported to support project site preparation and construction. To mitigate any transfer invasive pathogens, pests, or plants, including from construction equipment, the proposed CD1 includes condition J, which requires the applicant to comply with certain protocols to minimize the spread of invasive species. Joining us in the chamber is Jim Hayes from Planning Solutions, Inc., who will be providing a brief presentation. For your information, the presentation is available online as Miscellaneous Communication 87, 2026.
Thank you, Chair. Jim Hayes, representing the applicant. Just quick presentation. Thank you very much for reviewing the project, Chair. This project, sorry. This project is in Kahala in the primary urban center or corridor. So as the chair mentioned, the shoreline setback is based on just a 60-foot plus a 15-foot waiver line. But the project site, as explained, is a joint development between the parcel that's on Kahala Avenue and then the parcel that's on the shoreline. The proposed development is entirely on the parcel closer to Kahala Avenue, so it's quite a ways from the shoreline. As the chair mentioned, the project area, at least the Mauka portion, is outside the shoreline or the sea level rise exposure area, which is shown in blue here. And all the development is also outside of any erosion hazard areas. This shows both the relatively undeveloped roadside parcel. The roadside parcel is currently developed with like a pond. And so some of the area has been disturbed previously by the pond and other activities for landscaping on that area. And then the shoreline parcel has a single family dwelling that you can see here, kind of shaped like a piano. Yeah, it's only the mouse is working. Yeah. So yeah, this is an overview of what the development would consist of. It's a relatively modest structure with 3 bedrooms on a single level. And as mentioned, the living area will be elevated above the base flood elevation. Base flood elevation is only 8 feet. The ground level is roughly 6 feet. So it's not elevated very far off the ground. And lastly, I think that may be the end. I guess that's the end. Maybe we skipped one, but that's all right. Any questions? We've reviewed the revised CD1 and understand the proposed modifications that were presented verbally and have no issues with the resolution as written.
Are you done?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah,
I'm done.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear an ending there. Okay. Members, any questions? Before calling up the administration, I'm going to call up take public testimony. Proceeding first with in-person testimony in the chamber. Clerks, do we have any in-person testifiers?
Chair, there are none.
Any remote testifiers?
Chair, there are none.
For the administration, we have Don Takeuchi Apuna, Director of the Department of Planning and Permitting.
Thank you, Chair. We have no objections to the proposed CD1, but we're
you.
here for any questions.
Thank you. Members, any questions? If no questions or further discussion, the chair recommends that Resolution 26-27 be amended to post at CD1 as further amended as we discuss to amend Condition F relating to impacts to archaeological, historic, and cultural resources that may be present on the site. First, amending Condition F3 to replace the reference to Iwi Kupuna with human burials, including Iwi Kupuna, Native Hawaiian ancestral remains. And second, amending the last sentence of Condition F to delete the phrase and all mitigation protocols approved or otherwise required by SHPT. So the sentence reads, the requirements enumerated in this condition must be clearly stated under environmental notes on all project construction permit plans and building permit plans. Any discussion? Any objections or reservations? Hearing none, the resolution has been amended to a CD1. The chair then recommends that Resolution 26 CD1 be reported out for adoption. Any discussion? Any objections or reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Moving to agenda item number 3 for action, Resolution 26-29. This resolution grants a special management area major permit to Hawaii Iki Submarine Cable USA LLC to allow for the expansion of the existing cable landing station via horizontal directional drilling to create 3 8-inch to 10-inch diameter boreholes and installation of 3 new trans-Pacific subsea fiber optic telecommunication cables traversing under the shoreline at Kahe Point Beach Park in Nanakuli, continuing under the former Oahu Rail and Land Company right-of-way and train tracks and Farrington Highway to the existing cable station facility on portions of 6 zoning lots. The 6 zoning lots are identified as tax map keys 92049, portions of 001, 002, and 005, portions of 001, 010, and 010. Involves modifications of the existing cable station driveway, which is shared with the owners of this adjacent parcel, Zone R5 Residential District, and 0 11, which is the existing cable station site zone country district. We have posted on the agenda a CD1 version of the resolution, which I submitted. For your information, a summary of the amendments is listed on the agenda. Similar to the previous measure, I am proposing 2 verbal amendments requested by DPP to Condition B of the CD1 relating to impacts to archaeological, historic, and cultural resources that may be present on the site. In Condition B3, replace the reference to Iwi Kupuna with human burials, comma, including Iwi Kupuna. Also, in the last sentence of Condition B, delete the phrase, and all mitigation protocols approved or otherwise required by SHPD. So the sentence reads, the requirements enumerated in this condition must be clearly stated under environmental notes in all project construction permit plans and building permit plans. Project drilling, tunneling, and conduits will surface at the exit point, approximately 3,000 feet offshore. Most of the project drilling and tunneling will occur under submerged lands within the State Land Use Conservation District, which is under the jurisdiction of the State of Hawaii Department of Land and Natural Resources, which will be evaluated under a state conservation district use approval process. The portion of the project subject to SMA major permit approval is the portion that occurs Mauka of the State Land Use Conservation District. The project's landing site at the cable landing station expansion site is located approximately 250 feet Mauka of the shoreline. The project does not propose any above-ground structures and does not involve any additions to the existing cable station building. The project is a small utility, which is permitted in all zoning districts. The project represents the applicant's contribution to the Hawaii Connect Kako initiative, which is a state of Hawaii program to ensure communities in the state have reliable and affordable access to high-speed internet service. The cable landing station site is not anticipated to be impacted by 3.2 feet of sea level rise by the year 2100. There is no erosion rate established for the rocky coastline at Kahe Point, so the shoreline setback is 60 feet. Since the project traverses under the shoreline setback area, a shoreline setback variance is required. The variance will be processed by the Department of Planning and Permitting after this SMA major permit is approved. Condition E of the proposed CD1 requires the applicant to obtain a shoreline setback variance prior to the issuance of any construction or building permit for the project. An environmental assessment was completed, and the State Department of Land and Natural Resources issued a finding of no significant impact on June 24th, 2025. The assessment included an archaeological inventory survey conducted on May 20th, 2024 by Kiaʻāina Archaeological Consulting. No historical cultural resources were encountered during the survey. Prior to the survey, the applicant conducted a literature review which revealed that 16 cultural resource investigations were performed in the vicinity of the project site. Condition B of the proposed CD1 includes conditions requiring the applicant to submit to DPP a copy of the State Historic Preservation Division's written acceptance of the project's AIS and to implement all mitigation protocols approved or otherwise required by the division. A cultural impact assessment was conducted by Garcia and Associates in 2017 for the original cable landing station project. The assessment's technical report found no traditional cultural practices or cultural resources on the site. The chair of the Nanakuli Maili Neighborhood Board, number 36, expressed various environmental concerns regarding impacts of the project and the cable laying process to offshore coral and the marine ecosystem, including physical damage, pollution, and microbiological changes. These concerns relate to portions of the project within the State Land Use Conservation District and will be evaluated under that approval process. All excavated soil from the project's temporary staging area will be tested and reused, or if required, removed and disposed of off-site. While no importation of solar or structural fill material is proposed, since construction equipment may transfer invasive pathogens, pests, or plants, the proposed CD1 includes Condition D, which requires the applicant to comply with certain protocols to minimize the spread of invasive species. And I do know that that area actually has a lot of coconut rhinoceros beetle infestation. My family lives along that corridor, and it's all over the place. Joining us in the council chamber is David Slesser from BW Digital, who will be providing a brief presentation. For your information, the presentation is available online as Miscellaneous Communication 86-2026. And welcome, Vice Chair Waters.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. I can proceed while the presentation is being loaded. My name is David Slesser. I'm the project manager for Hawaii Submarine Cable, and I'm here to share a brief overview of our project to expand our existing subsea cable landing facilities. Just continue. We have been part of Hawaii's digital infrastructure since our Trans-Pacific subsea cable system came online here in 2018. Our cable connects Hawaii to the West Coast, American Samoa, New Zealand, and Australia, and includes built-in capability that can be used to extend services to other Pacific Island nations. Our system strengthened Hawaii's digital resilience and introduced long-needed competition to a market previously dominated by a small number of incumbent operators. Our proposed project represents a next step in safeguarding Hawaii's connectivity. Several of Hawaii's existing cables are near the end of their operational lifespans. At the same time, some new Trans-Pacific systems have bypassed the state due to perceived complexities in permitting. Our goal is to help remove these apparent barriers so Hawaii remains globally connected. It is important to note that no new subsea cables will be installed as part of this permit application. We are simply making the site future-ready, allowing future cable owners to land new systems here without the need to repeat nearshore major construction work. Future cable termination equipment will be housed in our existing facility, and to minimize disturbance, we will use horizontal directional drilling to bore holes through the bedrock to up to 153 feet below the seafloor. This avoids trenching, dredging, and nearshore construction impacts. By making Hawaii a more attractive landing point, we can provide diverse connectivity for carriers and operators, increase competition, helping moderate prices over time, provide greater resilience against outages and cable failures, and provide improved reliability for education, remote work, healthcare, and public safety. We are committed to the local workforce, and we rely heavily on local expertise throughout this project. Our key partners include Coluccio for the construction work, ESH for the land surveys, ASM for the archaeological and cultural engagement, a community liaison Lee Huff from Waianae, and Dia Fortress, who provide local operations team for their landing station itself. In terms of community engagement, since 2024, we have met extensively with community members, particularly Nanakuli and Kapolei, the Nanakuli Neighbourhood Board and Land and Border Committee, the Kapolei Neighbourhood Board, Kupuna Councils, coral restoration groups, and nearby residents. We've hosted open-door engagement sessions in both Nanakuli and Kapolei so residents could speak directly with our technical, cultural, and environmental specialists. As a direct result, we've adjusted our project plans from 6 conduits down to 3. As part of our ongoing long-term commitment, we are supporting the community through a scholarship program designed to encourage and develop local talent. The benefits of resilient connectivity are measurable. In recent years, high-speed internet adoption in Hawaii has grown to over 90% as new capacity has entered the market. In American Samoa, activation of the Hawaii branch increased internet participation by over 50%. These outcomes demonstrate the link between subsea infrastructure, digital equity, economic opportunity, and community resilience. By preparing this conduit system now, Hawaii becomes a simpler, more predictable landing point for future cables, bringing greater capacity, stronger competition, and ultimately better services for residents and businesses. Mahalo for your time and consideration. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Did, the PowerPoint wasn't moving forward. Was there a reason for that? Okay.
Okay.
So, members, any questions? Councilmember Tupola, since this is your district?
Yeah, thank you guys for being here, and thank you for the outreach that you've done in the community. In regards to the presentation to the neighborhood board, how recent or long ago was that? I'm unfamiliar with exactly when.
Our latest presentation was in Nanakuli, and it was in November last year.
November last year, yeah. Yeah, Chair, I can say that I've physically been there. So they've toured me on it, they've answered all my questions. So I don't have any for the room right here, but I can say that their outreach to the community has been extensive. As far as making sure that I believe you guys have a cultural liaison on board, is that correct?
We have a cultural liaison, Dietrich Dieholten is our liaison, and also his brother, the marine specialist, Damon, involved.
Did you say Dietrich's is?
Dietrich's, yes.
Du Hedlansad?
Yes.
Well, if you can get Dietrich's on your side, then you must be going the right way.
Thank you.
He is the man, Ulukoa. So I'm glad. I mean, I will say that he is kind of the cultural practitioner for that area, helps to take care of sites and ahus that are out there. So thank you. I know it's kind of niche what you guys do, not necessarily directly in the faces of all the community members, but it has been good to at least know what it is, what it's doing. So thank you for your continued due diligence and for hosting me on the site.
Mahalo.
Thank you, Chair.
Any other questions? Before I call up the administration, I would like to take public testimony. Clerks, are there any in-person or online testifiers?
Chair, we have a couple standing by.
In person or online?
In person.
First testifier is Jennifer Cruz.
Aloha, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Jennifer. I'm a project manager with Frank V. Coluccio Construction Company. We're the general contractor for this project. Our company has been operating in Hawaii since the 70s, so nearly 45 years, and about 98% of our workforce are local residents, many of whom have been with our company for over 15 years. We also prioritize working with local subcontractors, suppliers, and service providers whenever possible, so projects like this support the local economy and construction community as well. Our team has also completed 2 other shore crossings and several directional drilling projects here in Hawaii. Our team lives and works here in Hawaii, and we also take the responsibility of working in these coastal areas very seriously. Our commitment is to execute the work safely, comply and with all permit conditions, and minimize disruption to the surrounding community. Mahalo for the opportunity to provide the testimony.
Thank you for your testimony. Members, any questions? The next testifier is Fred Rohde.
Good morning, Chair Kiaʻāina and members of the committee. My name is Fred Rohde. I'm co-president and COO of DR Fortress, Honolulu's largest data center and hub of the internet. I'd like to provide my support for item number 3. Not only does it solve a solution where these undersea cable systems are passing us, making it easier for them to come in, but it's going to provide the ecosystem what it needs, right? When these undersea cable systems end of life and none of them come in, bandwidth prices go up. When they come in and there's lots of them, bandwidth prices go down, creates new markets, creates jobs, make sure that we have a robust telecommunications and internet system for now and for generations to come. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Members, any questions? Is there anyone else in the chamber who would like to testify? Seeing none, clerks, just to confirm, there's no one online waiting to testify?
Yes, Chair.
Okay, for the administration, we have Don Takeuchi Opuna, Director of the Department of Planning and Permitting.
Thank you, Chair. We have no objections to the proposed CD1, and we're available for any questions.
Members, are there any questions before I make my recommendation? Seeing none, the chair recommends that Resolution 26-29 be amended to the posted CD1 as further amended as we discussed to amend Condition B relating to impacts to archaeological, historic, and cultural resources that may be present on the site by first amending Condition B3 to replace the reference to iwi kupuna with human burials, including iwi kupuna, and second, amending the last sentence of Condition B to delete the phrase "and all mitigation protocols approved or otherwise required by SHPT." Any discussion, any objections or reservations? Hearing none, the resolution has been amended to a CD1. The chair then recommends that Resolution 26-29 CD1 be reported out for adoption. Any discussion, any objections or reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. As I mentioned earlier, agenda item number 4, Bill 70, 2025, CD1 has been canceled. Moving to agenda item number 5, for action, Bill 6, 2026, CD1, amending the development standards for the apartment and apartment mixed-use zoning districts. This bill amends the land use ordinance to modify the development standards for the apartment and apartment mixed-use zoning districts. Amendments to the land use ordinance proposed by the council are processed by the Department of Planning and Permitting and the Planning Commission. Bill 6, 2026 is the department's recommended alternative version of Bill 5, 2026, which was the council proposed by adoption Resolution 25-105. The commission recommended approval of Bill 6. The bill reduces the minimum lot size to 5,000 square feet for all apartment and apartment mixed-use districts, which the department considers to be the minimum size needed to develop the lots efficiently. The bill also provides for a standard 60-foot minimum lot dimension for all apartment and apartment mixed-use districts, which the department believes will accommodate adequate infrastructure with the street frontage. Regarding density or floor area ratio, which I will be referring to as FAR, the bill increases the maximum residential FAR to 2.0 in the A1 and AMX1 districts, 3.0 in the A2 and AMX2 districts, and 4.0 in the A3 and AMX3 districts. The maximum commercial FAR remains at 0.3 in the AMX1 district, 0.4 in the AMX2 district, and 0.6 in the AMX3 district. But the maximum commercial FAR is listed as an additional allowance, not as part of the overall maximum FAR. This approach is intended to eliminate competition between residential and commercial uses in the apartment mixed-use districts. Regarding maximum building area, which is the maximum percentage of a zoning lot that can be covered by a structure over 30 inches in height, the bill would set a single and scalable standard of 60% of the zoning lot, which would scale linearly as the lot size increases. The bill does not adjust the required yards, height setbacks, and maximum building height, which provide adequate checks against inappropriate development that may be possible with the additional allowed density. Since the Planning Commission recommended Bill 6, 2026, a simple majority vote of the council members is required for Bill 6 to pass third reading. Before I call up the administration, I would like to take public testimony, proceeding first with in-person testimony in the chamber. Clerks, do we have any in-person testifiers?
Chair, we have one standing.
In-person testifiers. We have Wilford Motosue.
Good morning, Chair Kiaʻāina and Vice Chair Waters and other members of the committee. I do support this bill. However, I have 3 requests that this committee put into this bill. And number 1 is very, very important, I feel. I'm requesting that you folks exempt small projects of for sale condo units of less than 75 units, and 2, exempt developments of less than 50 lot subdivisions from Ordinance 18-10, which is Chapter 29, Affordable Housing Requirements. which requires residential projects that have 10 or more condo units or home lots in the project to set aside 10% of those condo units or lots to sell at the reduced affordable pricing. Exemptions should also be given to projects with 50 or less dwelling units for cluster project housing projects and B, planned development housing projects of 75 units or less. The county, city, county, and state and big developers are developing this huge number of units in their project, but they have the financial resources, office personnel size, and financial cushion in their projects to be able to provide these affordable housing along with their market units. But small developers such as me, with our small projects and small profit margins, will be put in an extremely risky and financially difficult situation if they had to sell 10% of the project at reduced prices while trying to come out with a 20% possible profit. So trying to meet this affordable housing requirements would create a lot of risk for us to do even a small projects. Small developments don't have the benefits of large developments, such as cost savings from volume. Even the big developments are selling only 5 to 17%, I've been told, of the available affordable units in their projects because of a variety of reasons like high
Okay,
interest rate,
Mr.
selling restrictions.
Montesui, would you be, are you complete? Are you finished?
Well, I just have a couple more paragraphs.
Yes, can I ask, because this idea, this measure has come in very many forms, and we've actually had a lot of hearings. Have you testified at previous hearings? Is this the first time you're testifying?
No.
Oh, you have testified. Okay, during the discussion, we'll ask some questions to the Department of Planning and Permitting, if it could, about your proposals, okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone in the council chamber who would like to testify? Seeing none, clerks, do we have any online testifiers?
Chair, we have one standing by.
Ted Kefalas, are you online?
Testifier is not logged on. We have Jonathan Helton standing by.
Jonathan, are you testifying in your own capacity? Jonathan.
I am. Yeah, hi, Chair. Hopefully you could hear me. I am testifying on behalf of the Grassroots Institute since Ted can't be at this meeting.
That's helpful for me to know, but you're not testifying for him. You're testifying on behalf of the Grassroots Institute, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you. Please proceed.
All right, so I'll begin by introducing myself. My name is Jonathan Helton. I'm a policy analyst at the Grassroots Institute. I do a lot of our land use research. So thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, for hearing this bill. Grassroots supports it. We believe that it will be really helpful for adding additional density where density has already been zoned for by the city and county. With that said, in our written testimony, we've noted 2 amendments. The first amendment we suggest is increasing the FAR in the A2 zone from 3 to 4. About 80% of the apartment zone lots in the city are A2 zoned. So increasing the FAR for that district would have a really big benefit in terms of allowing additional density and therefore additional housing. The second amendment that we have discussed is detailed really well in the testimony given by Center Urban Real Estate, which is of changing the lot widths and depths from 60 feet to either 50 feet or 45 feet. And that's explained in their testimony that they have submitted as well. So that's all I have. Happy to answer any questions that I can.
Thank you so much. Members, any questions? Clerks, are there any others standing by remotely?
Chair, there are none.
We're going to move forward with the administration. Don Taku-Chiapuna, Director of the Department of Planning and Permitting.
Good morning, committee chair and members. Alex Beatty with DPP. We continue to support Bill 6 CD1 and here to answer any questions if you have any.
Sure, since, and to follow up on the previous testifier, two testifiers go. Do you have any comments on the impact to small developers as expressed by Wilford Montesui?
I'm sorry, and related to the affordable housing requirement?
He's asking for exemptions.
I think that this bill would apply evenly to all developers, and it's really important that it be treated as such so that we can obtain the types of developments that are envisioned by the plans that are being executed through the land use ordinance. So I don't know that we support any through the LUO exemptions. I think that there's a discussion later for Chapter 32, which involves exemptions and waivers.
And do you have any comments on the recommendations by the Grassroots Institute?
Yes, we explicitly explored those recommendations and do not support them. The narrower lots have an inverse effect on the efficiency of development. And since we made our recommendation to the Planning Commission a few months ago, I've been paying a lot of attention to the actual application of what happens in that frontage as real projects come through. And it is so challenging to get pedestrian-oriented frontage on narrower lots. And the types of densities that we're talking about demands that the design be pedestrian and transit-friendly and not strictly auto-oriented. There's not enough room to have the amount of parking that's needed to develop an apartment building so that everybody has 2 parking spaces. So then we have to allow for things like street trees or bus stops or street lighting. All of those infrastructure items happen in that narrow frontage, and 70 feet is the requirement right now, and it's already a little tight. 60 feet is what Bill 6 recommends, and we think that that's still supportable because there may be efficiencies that we're exploring, but anything less than that, in my practical experience, just not going to be able to get the infrastructure needed to support the density that's imagined.
Thank you. Members, any questions? Okay, I'm going to move forward with my recommendation. The chair recommends that Bill 6, 2026, CD1 be reported out for passage on third reading. Any discussion, any objections or reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Moving to agenda item number 6 for action. Oh, did you want to say something? For action, Bill 7. Bill 7, 2026, CD1. This bill amends the land use ordinance by modifying the sign standards for the apartment and apartment mixed-use districts. Amendments to the land use ordinance proposed by the council are processed by the Department of Planning and Permitting and the Planning Commission. The council proposed Bill 7 by adoption of Resolution 24-223. The bill allows for 1 sign for each ground floor establishment with building frontage. Currently, only 1 sign is allowed for each principal pedestrian or vehicular entrance to the building. If there are several ground floor establishments that have street frontage, the proposed amendment would allow all ground floor establishments with street frontage to have a sign. The current CD1 version of the bill incorporates the Planning Commission's recommendation to reduce the size limit on the sign from 12 square feet to 9 square feet, so a simple majority vote of the council members is required for the bill to pass third reading. Councilmember Tupola, as introducer of the bill, do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, it looks good. We've worked extensively with not just the stakeholders, but also with DPP and the Planning Commission with their suggestions. Everything has been implemented, and our constituents and the local businesses in my district are very grateful.
Thank you so much. Before I call up the administration, I would like to take public testimony. Proceeding first with in-person testimony in the chamber. Clerks, do we have any in-person testifiers?
Chair, we have a couple standing by.
In person.
Yes.
First is Lee Tokuhara.
Good morning, Chair Kiaʻāina, Vice Chair Waters, members of the committee. My name is Lee Tokuhara with D.R. Horton, Hawaii. We're in full support of Bill 7. It's a great bill for all businesses across our county, but particularly at Ho'opili, where the community is being specifically designed to include residential and commercial uses. Bill 7 will give small businesses in these types of neighborhoods the opportunity to properly promote and advertise their products and services. So just finally, we'd like to thank Councilmember Tupola for your leadership in putting this together and working with everyone, and all of you for your consideration.
Thank you so much. Next testifier is Kieran Polk.
Good morning, Chair Kiaʻāina, Vice Chair Waters, members of the committee. Kieran Polk, Executive Director and CEO of the Kapolei Chamber of Commerce. And we also stand in strong support of Bill 7. So many of our businesses are small businesses that are impacted by this. We have a few members, in particular at Ho'opili, that are in great need of having that signage, so this will help them. But even in the big picture in our region, the West Oahu region is really designed as a live, work, play model. And so just by design to have the opportunity to have this type of signage in future community development will be just greatly appreciated as well in the big picture. And so we thank you also, Councilmember Tupola, for bringing this forward and supporting our small businesses. Mahalo for your time.
Thank you. Clerks, I'm sorry, to anyone else in the chamber who would like to testify, please come forward. Seeing none, clerks, do we have any online testifiers?
Chair, there are none.
Thank you so much. Let's call up the administration.
Good morning, DPP Staff Planner Lino PURSUANT. We are in support of the CD1.
Did you identify yourself?
Yes, Lino PURSUANT, DPP Staff Planner.
Okay. I did have just a small question. Was DPP in support of reducing the maximum size of for the ground floor establishments from 12 feet to 9 square feet? Were you guys in support of that?
Yes, we're in support of that based on the Planning Commission's concerns.
That you'd have too many of the 12 feet signs?
They were just more concerned on 12 square feet would be too big. So the compromise was 9 square feet, which is what we would do for our public hearing signs.
Okay, thank you. Members, any questions for DPP? Councilmember Tupola.
I'll make a small comment. So when we discussed the size of the signs, they gave me a picture of Councilmember Waters' district, and they're like, see these signs? This is the size. So it's actually going to be uniform across the county what it looks like. It looks like exactly what you see along Waialae, the size of it. So they said the size we suggested was a little too big. So fear not, everyone. It will be uniform in Kapolei. We will not deter
What
from
is
the
the current size?
Well, right now, all they do is the little real estate signs outside because they cannot put it up.
Okay,
so.
got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, are there any other questions on this? If not, the chair recommends that Bill 7, 2026 CD1 be reported out for passage on third reading. Any discussion? Any objections or reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Moving to agenda item number 7, informational briefing, update by the Department of Planning and Permitting on its building permit process backlog, including the status of building permits applications for ROH Chapter 32 or affordable rental housing projects. Joining us in the council chamber is Don Takichiopuna, Director of the Department of Planning and Permitting, who will be providing a brief presentation including an update of the amounts of post-construction grants and pre-construction subsidies awarded to date for ROH Chapter 32 projects. For your information, the presentation is available online as Departmental Communication 136-2026.
Thank you, Chair. We're just getting the presentation set up. But thank you for this opportunity to provide an update on the building permit process backlog and the status of Bill 7 projects or Chapter 32 projects. All right, so the first slide, or the next slide, is all permits created and issued in 2025 and 2026. So this isn't just building permits, this is the full range of 38 permits that we issue across the board throughout the department, like SMAs, grading, trenching, building. And so it shows throughout 2025, and then in August when we launched H&L Build, that we did get a large amount of applications, which is the blue column, and then the number that were actually issued is the yellow. So once H&L Build was launched on August 4th, there was some, staff were working on adjusting to the new system, and so there were less permits going out. But we've caught up in some respects since then, but there was definitely a huge spike in September and October. All right, next slide. So building permits in themselves, this is a chart from January of 2019. So this is the last 5 or 6 years, from January 2019 all the way through January 2026. And it just gives you an idea for building permits altogether, how many we were getting in and how many we were able to issue. But the spike in September, October of 2025 exceeded prior spikes back in September of 2023 and September 2019. So we, even with the H&L Build coming online, we were receiving more applications. And then the next slide, we break it down by residential versus commercial building permits received and issued. So on the residential side, I think what is encouraging is that in 2025, the gap between applications and those issued is narrow. So that means we're getting better at keeping up with what's coming in. And we'll continue to work towards that and try to make it an even between those two. And then in commercial, there which are certainly more complex projects, there still is a gap, and I would lend that to, in part, the hiring that we still continue to have challenges with the engineers who review those types of projects. The next slide, so I think we used to give like an overall average of our building permit review times, and I think this is a better way of looking at it. To give you these are the average days for each of the different types of review. And we've talked about pre-screen. A couple years ago, we had the 6-month pre-screen backlog. Right now, it's 13 days we had some fluctuation after H&L Build was implemented. But our residential code review is on average 7 days. Stormwater quality, which was I think it was up to 2 months or so, as 4 days. And then we added, Board of Water Supply, a couple of their reviews, and HECO. But this would give you kind of a general understanding of average days. And these are all run concurrently. They're not, linear. So, but also I would just say that all projects are different. It's hard to say what is an average, but this gives you an idea of like a single family home. And this is just for one review cycle. So if you get everything right, you could be done probably in 16 days for a really well done plan. But if you have to come back and address comments, you're gonna have to start that process again, and it would be the same review times applied. So that multiplies your time in review. The next slide is the commercial review times. Again, pre-screen is the same. We have a backlog in our commercial electrical review, and that, again, is partially capacity. We are using our third-party contract that is taking some of those reviews so that we can bring that backlog down. But building and mechanical, 9 and 15 days, zoning 10, fire 7, Board of Water Supply, and then in green are HECO, HDOT, DOH. These might typically be reviews for a commercial project. And again, just for one review cycle. This next page is just a reminder that the applicant has the power to influence review times. These are just some extreme applications, and we're showing the time with DPP versus the applicant, the number of review cycles. So it's important that applicants and owners look at in H&L Build where the task is, and if it's in their court, they should review it and get it back quickly, which will help the process to move forward. So that's a building permit backlog. And now for Bill 7 projects, we just want to give you an update.
Before you continue, members, did you want to ask questions first on the process, or would you like her to just move forward on the Bill 7 projects? Move forward? Okay, please proceed.
Okay, thank you. So for Bill 7 projects, there are currently 59 total projects. 6 have been completed and a certificate of occupancy issued, so they're occupied. 16 are currently under construction and have a building permit. 35 are under review. We note that 28 are currently with the applicant and 7 are with the city or other agency. And this can mean 1,752 total units, potential as well as built. And this currently we have added 189 units to Oahu's housing stock. With regard to Bill 7 grants, just to give you an update, the pre-construction subsidy program, which has been it has been around for a few years. We have, I'm sorry, I'm getting confused. This has been functional for the last couple months, the pre-construction subsidy program. We have 3 applications pending. And 0 have been awarded because we have just recently opened up the program. For post-construction, we have awarded 6 grants for a total of $1.9 million since 2022. The number of applications pending is 0. And, just looking at the 2 grant programs, we believe the preferred grant, because you can only take either or, is the pre-construction grant. I think they're not looking at the post-construction. The unit grant is up to $50,000 for the pre-construction, which certainly is a lot more attractive than what is potentially like a $12,000 grant under the post-construction. And I understand that having this pre-construction grant money helps for financing, so it is very helpful for those projects. This next slide just gives you an idea of those that have been built, the maximum height for those districts and zoning versus the number of stories that were actually built. The last one with the 400 feet, that's kind of an, that's not usual. That was an adaptive reuse of 1060 Bishop Street. And as you can see, for the most part, they're under the height limits. This next slide is the maximum height versus number of stories again, but these are for the projects with building permits, and for the most part, mostly under the building max heights, but there's a few that are slightly above. The next slide is just a breakdown of the number of projects in each council district, as well as the number of affordable units. Council District 5, Councilmember Nishimoto by far has the most, 38 projects. And this next map, it's just a heat map of where those projects are throughout the island. And then the rest of these slides, these are just for your, for each council member's, knowledge of where these projects are within your district. So I'm not going to go through each one, but it gives you an idea of the status of the building permit and the zoning district. And the number of units and the project name. So with that, that's it. That is our presentation, and we're here for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. I actually have several questions, but I'm going to open up to the members after. I just would recommend, for the, your backlog. First of all, it's clear that you guys have made a lot of progress, but before you'd have a comparison over a certain period, a previous date. Yeah. I think it's very helpful for comparison purposes, because if you were to just read it like this, you would have no idea of comparing the progress that has been made.
Right, yeah, so I think that we will do that moving forward. So because H&L Build is now the system that we're pulling this information, this will be our baseline, these numbers today, and then whenever we update, we'll compare it to the last.
Oh yeah, because then that's how you can show the measured progress, okay? So I'm gonna actually, well, maybe let me just start off with one question relating to the page where you have a summary by all of the districts. So I see that Councilmember Nishimoto has 38, which is the bulk of all of the units. And then of course, Councilmember Dos Santos Tam, and there's a handful in mine, and Chair Waters and Councilmember Wire. There's one in Okimoto's, and there's none in Councilmember Tupola's, Councilmember Cordero, and Councilmember Toba's district. So do you know if there's what is the explanation for why this is? And is there any, because clearly then this bill process is not being utilized in these districts. And so what do you think is the basis for this? And also, do you have any recommendations on how we can improve this?
And I think it would be because of the zoning in those particular council districts. They don't have the apartment business mixed use where Bill 7 is intended for. So that's probably why developers aren't looking for those parcels in their districts.
Because majority are residential?
Residential, or yeah, it could be other industrial, or yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you. So I'm going to start fielding questions. Councilmember Tupola.
Thank you so much. Aloha, Director. Thanks for being here. This is really nice. I like the depth of some of these graphs. I can see somebody is increasing their knowledge of these presentations. It looks clean. And I think Chair Kiaʻāina, for always hosting you in her committee, I think that's been the most consistent for me, is to have her come regularly so we can see that progress. And, moving forward, recommend that DPP just stay with your committee, because I think for all of us, it was kind of back and forth. Now it's like solid updates. Now we can see solid progress. So quick question on the spike of September and October. Is there any rhyme or reason?
Part of it, okay, definitely. I think solar permitting, right? They had the December deadline, and they needed to have not just the permit in hand, they had to have something else. But so they were lining it up. They needed it so that's part of it, but it's not a huge, we looked at kind of the percentage. I know a couple years ago, we said solar permitting was 60% of just residential permits. That has come down. It ranges between 40 to 50%, but even during that one spike, it's a little bit higher, but it wasn't a huge. So solar permitting maybe a little bit in September or November and December, but I think it's H&L Build. I think people were getting used to the system. They were registering into the system, so they hadn't put applications in, so there was a little lag, and then, okay, now we can apply.
Are you guys still doing the workaround on the solar permits with H&L Build? because it wasn't really working well for the solar developers, but is it better now? Do they go directly on the website?
Yes, yes, exactly. That was one of the issues that came up when we launched H&L Build, but we looked at it, we fixed everything, and it's running as smoothly as it had before as an automatic quick permit.
Do you guys have a suggestion for the commercial building permit review, seeing as though the electrical one is so high?
Yeah, that one, again, we are giving our third-party reviewer a lot of those projects. I'm having the staff really look at pushing hiring. It is a capacity issue. We're still below 50% there. But yeah, it's one of those things. It's good. We're looking at where these spikes are, and we're trying to really focus in on how to address those.
Yeah, it's great. The data can diagnose, and so I'm glad on that. On the next page, you said that there's emails that go to remind people that maybe there's an item in their possession. Are those automated emails, or are staff emailing it out?
I believe those are automated.
Okay, perfect.
And I would just like to add, and we didn't include this, so now within H&L Build, anyone can go into H&L Build, look at an active permit. They don't have to be the applicant or the owner, and they can see what the current tasks are. And I think this is important so that you guys get calls all the time about where my permit is. We're gonna expand that too to show more about how much time it's been, but right now you can look at where the task is.
Yeah, that has been so helpful. I can't emphasize how many people I've had say, thank goodness I can see the progress myself. Prior to this, it was only the architect or whoever submitted. Now anybody, including the owner of the property, because people get asked questions and they only have one person, and sometimes, unfortunately, somebody passes away or somebody moves and then no one has any idea where the progress of the permit is. So this is much more transparent. So congratulations on that.
No, thank you. And I would like to mention, we said, applicants, you can now add the owner. That was a major thing, but we didn't find that they were adding owners. So we just said, let's just open it up so that anyone could just go to the H&L Bill website and put in an address and see where things are at. I think no more gatekeeping. Let everyone see.
Yeah, as long as it's not on us and they're able to do it, I'm good with that. In the graph about the max height versus number of stories, do you guys mean feet high? Because it's like, say for example, 311 Pu'uhue Place, it says 50, and then I think the max height is 40. It's not stories, right? It's not 50 stories.
Yeah, it's height, feet.
Feet,
yes.
Feet, okay. And then I guess lastly, and then I'll wrap up. Thank you, Chair, for this time. I just wanted to say that I'm glad you outlined it in districts. I will say that for many of the edits that I'm doing for the bill that's going to address some of the Chapter 32, I really leaned on Councilmember Nishimoto. He is getting it the hardest, right, as far as his feedback from constituents. And I think ultimately this program was geared towards an area built like that, and therefore that's why I don't have any in my district. And I just wanted to openly say that, I do hear, him and his constituents in the realm that I have a responsibility, but really the largest bulk of this is going to probably remain in his district. Thank you so much, Director, and thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And while you're on that topic, before I move to the next council member, I think it would be helpful because we have to go back. Could you put in the future on the summary of the districts, the council member? Because
I had to look that up too.
Okay, sorry about that.
I know my district, and then I have to go and cross-reference and just make it easier. But this is not just about us. This is about the general public. And I feel like these are very useful information for people to start getting educated, including all of the advocates for or against Bill 7 projects. One of the reasons I thought that this would be helpful is not just to get an update on the backlog, but to understand that against this backdrop, we have a program that clearly is a top priority for the administration and many members of this council, and who would like to see a very efficient process. So we'd like to just see where they are so that we could better understand as we're developing policy how to move forward. Okay, other members. Councilmember Okimoto.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Director Afuna.
Morning.
Thank you so much. I kind of wanted to go along the lines, similar questions regarding the application process. And you kind of answered some of what I wanted to ask. But when we get concerns from the constituents, and you're saying now that they have more I'm not sure if it's authority or access to their own permits. What can we do to help you guys? Because I'm sure you're bombarded. We get asked all the time, and then we in turn go to you guys. So how could we help educate them? You have here, you're telling their applicants to tell their owners and work together, but it seems like maybe that's not happening quite as efficiently as we would hope it would be.
Yeah, so maybe we can do a better job of just saying, what are the steps? Mostly, I would say you can tell your constituents to go to our H&L or Build portal, and they don't even have to register to do some key searches, and they could put in an address.
It's the address.
Yeah,
Okay.
so we can probably come up with a very easy step-by-step, go here, put this in, and then this is where you'll see the task. And that information, but I'd say go to the H&L Bill portal.
Is there a graphic that, I mean, we tend to all use social media as well, where we could just say, hey, DPP has this information, and we could share it. I know we tend to do that with other departments. If we see they post something, a lot of us will share it as well. Is there something like that for you guys that we could get that out?
we can provide we'll give you a link that you can forward to so it's set up on our webpage, the link to the portal, so we can give you a step-by-step and the links so you can forward it to constituents.
Okay, thank you. And I think this might be my last one. On the first graph, and maybe I'm reading it wrong, where it has permits created and issued in 2025, and you may have explained this, but I'm looking at it, and so you were able to, you have the blue, which is the created, and that's going to come down, but the orange issued has declined as well. So am I reading that wrong, where we, with the H&L Build, the permits being issued have actually decreased at the same time? Instead of, I would think that they would at some point kind of balance out.
Yeah,
I think maybe I'm reading it wrong.
Yeah, I think there has been some, because of the implementation of H&L Build, there has certainly been adjustment on the staff side to review. So this is expected to some degree. There is going to be slowdown as we continue to refine the system, staff getting used to it. So that is part of it. I would say this first slide is of all permits. It's not just building. So there's different lead times. An SMA permit is different than a building permit. So it's different factors, but our goal certainly is to bring it closer. And I think you'll see that in the next year or so. We're going to be able to catch up and gain traction now that the new system is in place.
And I did know that you did mention that it was 38 types of all. And on your 2 pages after, you showed that in the residential versus the commercial, you've made really big gains. What percentage of the, again, I'm not familiar with all the different types of permits, but how much time are you spending, out of the 38 types of permits, how much time is being spent in the residential? It seems like commercial still had there because of the layers that you have to go through. Of those 38, how much time is being spent on the, I guess, the residential, where we get a lot of the concerns from?
So that one slide with the residential and commercial, that's just building permits. That's not all the other types of approvals that we do. And then this next slide, this is just a, I think, well, pre-screen is before all the other reviews. Sorry, I didn't say that earlier, but pre-screen you must do before it goes into all these code reviews that are listed below. And so the ones below pre-screen run concurrently. So again, your first review should take maybe up to 16 days. And if you get everything is good and we approve it, you're done. But if there's comments, it will come back and you'll begin these cycles again. So it just depends on the type of project, the quality of the application, but this is what we're shooting for. So even with our AI, this is helping these plans and applications to come in ready, so it comes closer to just one review cycle. So that's exciting too.
I want to thank you. I remember back when Councilmember Committee Chair Kiaʻāina had you coming in for the planning, when it was just a planning committee, and you were able to share things with us. So since H&L Build started in August of last year, and you've, of course, like everything else, you've said that we have to adjust. Have you seen the progress and the adjustments moving in the right direction?
Yes, I think so. I think so. I mean, it takes time for different levels of, or different types of for people to just get used to the system. You know, they've a lot of them were with Posse for their whole. I mean, most of them with Posse their whole career. So it takes some getting used to, but I think every day we're getting more comfortable with the system.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Well, thank you, and thank you for all of your efforts. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Other members before I ask further questions? Councilmember Dos Santos Tam.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to start with H&L Build, and I know we're going to have a little bit of a discussion in government efficiency later today about this, but as we work to improve H&L Build, I'll note that in the old system, the old permitting system visible to the public, you could see a number of other details: floor area of a building, the number of units, the occupancy code, the type of work. And if you look in H&L Build on these permits, you really only get about 8 or 9 individual data points, the total valuation. Can we add some of those things in for the visibility of the public?
Yes, that would be part of the enhancements that we can add in order, if it makes sense that people is helpful, then we can add those things.
And then now I want to dig in and follow up on some of the questions that Councilmember Okimoto started with regard to building permits. So if we look at this chart that's on the screen, starting with this, if we are going to clear the backlog, the idea is that the number of permits issued should match or exceed the number created. And I understand along the way some people cancel them. But looking at the numbers at the bottom, if you convert those to percentages, we start off at the left at 87% of permits created that year roughly results in being issued. And it's 84% for 2021, 69% in 2022, 78% in 2023, 92% in 2024, that's great, 82% in 2025, and 76% in 2026 thus far. So it occurs to me that I don't know how many permits get canceled along the way, but if we're never getting the orange line and blue line closer, we're always going to add to the backlog. Is that an accurate kind of depiction of what's going on here?
It is accurate that, yes, if we're not able to level up, that backlog is carrying over. But again, that is our complete goal, is to issue as many permits as are coming in, or to exceed that, or no, certainly to exceed that. We would like to be ahead of the game, and that's the direction that we're headed towards.
Okay. And I'd like to go to the slide before this, which is the large bar charts here. And this is just a snapshot of 2025 into the beginning of 2026. Because if we apply that same idea here, in the first 5 months of the chart, January through May, it was about an 86% clearance rate, if you total all the numbers. And then if you look at the last 5 months on the chart, October through February, it's only about 74%. Is the backlog growing?
I think that, I guess you could term that it is growing, but I think it is because of the implementation. It is the adjustment. So it is expected, and we know that we're not just we need to catch up, and we need to even go be better than that to exceed the number that are coming in.
Okay. I think these are all, and then if you go 2 more slides forward, the next big bar chart, this is residential versus commercial. I am a little concerned that the commercial side permits, the gaps seem to be bigger. And I know it might be a scale issue, given that there's fewer commercial ones, so the bar charts look a little bit off. But can you talk a little bit about why the commercial permits, the percentage gap between created and issued seems bigger and is bigger than the gap between residential permits being issued? Are we simply adding to the commercial backlog a lot more than the residential backlog?
Well, I think this is a capacity issue. You know, the engineer hiring has always been a challenge. You know, we asked for enough positions back in 2021, and we got those, but we have not been able to fill them. So that I think that's the key issue. The backlog, I mean, we'd have to look at the overall, what the backlog would mean, but again, you're correct. The characterization of commercial is very different than single family as, you know, complexity. But we would have to look at the data. We could probably look further back as well as the actual number of how many are.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful as we really dig into this, because, you know, simply presenting the average, which is a helpful metric, if we just flood it with solar permits that are very quick to approve, that brings down the average, but doesn't help, you know, the person that's waiting for a more complicated project that's been waiting, you know, 200 days or whatever the case may be. I will make one compliment on this chart. In 2025, if you look at the residential, it's very close, right? It's only a gap of 400. That's great. I think that's a good sign, and hopefully in 2026 we can keep that moving forward. Chair, with your indulgence, I have one more slide that I want to dig into.
Sure, move forward, and then we'll circulate
so if we move forward to the next, I think 2 more slides of the big red, maybe 1 more. There we go, the big red chart. So I appreciate this slide. I understand that sometimes it goes back to the applicant, but if you look at these applications that were taking a long time, the 4th one down the list is a Board of Water Supply project. It was solar on a Board of Water Supply project. Why would the city's own agency, where we can contract out the best engineers and architects and everyone else, why is a city project taking 163 days with DPP and 572 days with the applicant?
I mean, I think all projects, it's this, you know, you have the same, you have consultants. It's not, I don't think there's anything fundamentally different between a private project and a government project. You have different professionals working on it. It could be consultants outside of the city. So I don't think you necessarily see city projects or state projects being any better at creating plans. So I really, yeah.
I guess my frustration here is you take the total of this and it's 2 years, and we budget money that we spend on consultants and engineers and architects, and we budget money for the actual construction. And if this process takes, you know, it's sitting at DPP for a few months and then sits with the architect engineer, I mean, that's city money that's locked up and not being spent on things that we need. Same thing with the following project. The 2023 project was a state project, bathrooms at Hokulani Elementary School. And the very first project on the list, 2019, is new awning and AC for a restaurant in Manoa, $15,000. The total project's just $15,000, and it takes, between everybody, I mean, this length of time, why would awning and an AC on a restaurant take 142 days with DPP, putting aside the applicant side?
I mean, it must be a structural issue. You know, I think this slide shows you, I think that there's just a lot of time it's with the applicant, whether they're working on it or they're sitting on it, and the number of review cycles are telling too. But yeah, state projects, they could actually exempt themselves from our review, and they don't for whatever reason. They want a CO. So we've talked to them about that, but everyone plays a part. I would just say that everyone, not just DPP and the applicant, it's the consultants, it's everyone. So everyone can help shorten that time.
Thank you, Director. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Before I move to the next council member, I did want to say, you know, with regard to the Department of Hawaiian Homelands, I know that they are trying to self-certify. Hopefully, none of their projects are moving through the process, correct?
I see 1 or 2, maybe like through when I do see DHHL, but yeah, and we meet with Kali every once in a while about helping them get what needs to be done. But
Yes.
they certainly have those tools where they can.
Yes, whatever you could do to work with the appropriate state authorities to have other agencies also take that route would be appreciated. Okay, next member, before I ask a couple of questions, Councilmember Waters, Councilmember Cordero. Okay, just a couple of questions. So first off, adaptive reuse projects, because I get asked about that a lot. Within the Bill 7 projects, are there any currently under construction for review?
For
Adaptive reuse projects or no?
not that I know of, but I could be wrong, but I don't think so. No.
Okay, so along those lines, I guess I just want to make sure that if there are any impediments to the program for such programs, that your staff take a look at it, because the whole idea is to have both new buildings and projects, reuse projects, okay? Your presentation, this is all relating to Bill 7. You talked about post-construction grant program is losing steam and they're focusing on pre-construction grants. Can you explain that a little further? Why would they be losing steam for the post-construction?
So you can either take a pre-construction grant or a post. You can't take both.
Okay.
So it's just more attractive, the pre-construction, I think, to the developer, because they have that set, or they know what kind of money they have for in pre-construction grant to finance the project, to show lenders, and the amount is up to $50,000 per unit versus, I think, the post-construction. It's a different calculation, but it's about $12,000 per unit. So obviously more grant money is better.
And so with you launching the pre-construction, you're anticipating an increase, of course, in applicants. And are you going to have sufficient funds? Well, do you have sufficient funds now? And with the upcoming budget, what are you anticipating?
Yes, we are anticipating about $4 million for the next fiscal year. We have enough for this year. So that's just based on the numbers that we have. But we think we'll be fine to provide the grant money to any of the pre-construction or post-construction grants applications that come in.
Thank you. Can I just ask a big picture? When the Bill 7 program was initially established, what was the anticipated amount of units that we were thinking about that it will provide? And now that we have been in the throes a couple of years, I'm just wondering what you see as the potential for additional projects over until the expiration of the program. I'm just trying to look at numbers because, by the way, thank you so much for this data, because it's just very helpful for us, right? But can you answer that? What was the thoughts in the beginning, and what do you envision in the long run as the maximum universe of units that would be produced by Bill 7 projects?
I don't know what the goal, new unit number is. I think it was just to address the types of parcels that they could take advantage of, some infill development in these areas to redevelop aging apartments or and for smaller type developments. And as far as moving forward, I do think that it was a little bit difficult in the beginning to get everyone on the same page when it came to the building permit itself. But at this point, I think it's gotten better. And as we can see, the grant, as soon as we open it up, we quickly got applications. And I think we're gonna have a steady flow as these projects go through and more people decide to apply.
Okay, thank you. And in that vein, can I ask if you have sufficient resources, staffing, to be able to administer the program?
For the grants, yes, we're working with BFS. As far as the permitting, that I think it goes back to the engineers, because they are the ones that are reviewing Bill 7, and that's where we still have vacancies. So we're trying to focus on that, just filling those vacancies so they can review Bill 7 projects besides all other building permits.
Okay, thank you. And just so I can share with the members, the speed task force that was established by the legislature, both the director and myself are on it, and one of their priorities was to figure out how to have the permitting process be more efficient. And the issue of scholarships came up, but I had said that loan forgiveness is equally important as scholarships to try to incentivize people to come. So in the upcoming budget, I will be proposing a set amount of funds so that they could secure engineers who would otherwise be going to the private sector. And the loan forgiveness program would, of course, be conditioned on them staying at the DPP for the requisite number of years. Okay, my last question has to do with notification to the neighborhood boards. It seems to be a popular topic on a multitude of different projects. But I have to tell you, until I got this matrix, which I had asked, greatly appreciated, and I'm pretty sure that if other members had wanted this matrix, you can ask DPP. It shows everything: the maximum height under the underlying zoning, the address, and the number of units anticipated, as well as the developer. And I have to tell you, until I got this, I had no idea that I had 4 projects in my district, because I only thought I had 1. And that means none of these developers have even let me know about the other 3 projects. 330 Ku'ulei, which has been getting all the cracks in our community, you know, is doing the best that they can to build this. And I know that the developer is endeavoring to try to ensure as many Kailuans are going to be able to get in that. So at least I have a good idea of what's going on in that program, but I have no idea of what's going on in this program. And at tonight's Kailua Neighborhood Board, I'll make sure that my constituents know about all of these other projects. But my question to you is, just given, and by the way, I'm not being an impediment, contrary to a lot of testifiers and one council member, a couple of council, full council meetings we had ago, actually saying that I'm anti-housing and anti-Bill 7. To the contrary, I just want an efficient process. So I'm just wondering, given the fact that we are trying to figure out ways to make this a smoother process, part of the problem I see is that the community is unaware. So what are your thoughts with regard to requiring Bill 7 projects to have to go to the neighborhood boards?
You know, I think the whole idea of Bill 7 was it's a ministerial building permit, you know, and those don't attach conditions of review or notification to the community. So that was meant to, that they could, if they fulfilled the requirements, that they could move forward with a building permit. But I do understand there is certainly a lot of concern from the community to be aware of these upcoming projects. We can be more, we've recently sent you guys some reports about building permit applications that are monthly coming up, and maybe we can make an asterisk that it's a Bill 7 project. But as far as making it a requirement, I think that's a policy decision that the council.
Good enough. Can I ask, what about a website? Would you be able to put up a website with all of the projects?
We can look into that, yes.
Okay, I'm just trying to figure that out. And so that, because I know that you guys have so many things to update. Okay, if there's no other questions, I'm going to come to closure on the Councilmember Tupola.
Briefly, Director, I know we've talked about this previously, but in the future, I do think we should also look at the timeframes of certificate of occupancy. I know we're always like permit this, permit that, but after the permits are done, buildings are up, we still have this little delay with people not being able to occupy readily built buildings.
Yes, we need to look at that data. I know it's all been the permit, but we'll look at the inspection side.
Because I think on the Bill 7 projects as well, there's quite a few that are approved, but no certificate of occupancy. So I think for the benefit of the council members here, and I know we've talked about it, is studying that possible backlog in an inspection, or even if it's not us, if it's not our inspection, maybe it's a fire inspection, just making us aware of why. And of course, the public wants to know, why are these buildings built and approved and no one's in it, so we can have better answers.
Yes, agreed. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Director. Clerks, are there any in-person testifiers?
Chair, there are none.
Is there anyone in the chamber who would like to testify on this item? Seeing none, are there any online testifiers?
Chair, there are none.
Thank you so much. Moving forward to agenda item number 8, informational briefing, update by the Department of Planning and Permitting on Development and Sustainable Communities Plan Schedule and Transit-Oriented Development Plans and Zoning Status. Joining us in the chamber are representatives from DPP, who will be providing a brief update for your information. The status charts are available online as departmental communication 13720 6.
Good morning, Chair Kiaʻāina, Vice Chair Waters, and members of the committee. My name is Dina Wong. I'm Chief of DPP's Planning Division, and I don't have a presentation per se, but we did provide the schedule of where each of the plans are and which ones we are updating, so I can just briefly go over that verbally. We have 3 plans that are being updated currently. And the one that's furthest along and that will be coming to this body the soonest is the North Shore Sustainable Communities Plan. We are currently, we had a workshop in September on the public review draft after a lengthy comment period, and we are currently working with the consultant on reviewing all the comments, addressing them, and incorporating making some changes to the draft before it heads to the Planning Commission. We are scheduled to be before the North Shore Neighborhood Board in June of this year, and following that, it will be headed to the Planning Commission. We are anticipating in the 3rd quarter of this year, and then following that to the City Council. Following that will be the update of the Waianae SCP. So for that one, the consultant and DPP staff, we are working through the public review draft and anticipate release in the 3rd quarter of this year, followed by transmittal to Planning Commission. The most current effort we have underway is for the EVA DP. So for that update, we just got notice to proceed of July of last year, and we kicked off the process in the ending part of last year, starting off by just working with the consultant on gathering information, doing interviews with various agencies, neighborhood boards, community organizations. We're working with the consultant on developing a project website, which should be launched shortly, and they're working on putting together neighborhood profiles and fact sheets to use as, informational pieces to share out with the community when we start the engagement process. So that's keeping us quite busy. I don't have anything more, so if you have questions.
Members, before we go to TOD, any questions on these sustainability community plans? Councilmember Tupola.
Hi, aloha, Ms. Wong. Thank you for being here. In regards to the Waianae Sustainable Community Plan update, when it says public review draft distributed for review, when you guys do that, is there still going to be feedback during that time, or is it mainly just like a FYI, this is what it's going to look like, and then in 4th quarter it's posted? What does that look like?
No, that's when we release a public review draft, that starts the comment period, which will probably be about 60 days. And in past efforts, we have extended it. Sometimes we got requests by the neighborhood boards. They just need a little bit more time. So we can definitely do that because we want to make sure we hear back from everyone. So we put that out on the website. We send notices out that it's out there. We will do a workshop, so there'll be a lot of opportunity. And then following that, there's opportunity at Planning Commission and at the council for feedback.
Yeah, that'd be great. So this is kind of a projected 3rd quarter review and then 4th quarter transmitted, but there could be maybe some duration of edits. I know that you can comment at the Planning Commission as well here, but pretty much once it hits the Planning Commission and when it comes here, I want it to be done. But if there are small things, I wanted to make sure that we have some flexibility during the public review draft period.
Certainly.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Please proceed with the TOD.
I have a question.
Councilmember, Vice Chair Waters.
Thank you so much. Just looking at all these plans that DPP has done, it's actually pretty impressive, and thank you, Chair, for moving these along. I had 2 questions, though. We spent a lot of time dealing with the primary urban core development plan, which sets out goals for the next 10 years or so. Are you aware that the legislature is currently considering Senate Bill 2423 and House Bill 1919, which basically nullifies all that work that we've been doing on the primary urban center development plan. Basically, it divests the city and county of Honolulu and every county in the state of the authority to set the lot sizes. And I did have a conversation about this with the director, and DPP has submitted testimony in opposition of these two bills, but I just wanted to bring it out for everybody to know that this is what's happening right now at the legislature, right? Under Chapter 205 of Hawaii Revised Statutes, they empower the counties to determine zoning and lot size and other things, and they want us to create these plans that we've spent a lot of time working on. Just to throw all of that out and say, we're coming in and saying, you can now subdivide your lot to 2,500 square feet. And because remember they passed Senate Bill 3202 last year, which allows or requires us to allow 2 units, ADU units, on top of a house. So if they subdivide at 2,500 square foot minimum lot size, plus a home, plus 2 ADUs, right? I mean, I'm just curious, what's your thoughts about that when we think about all this work that you guys have done, when the legislature just comes in and just throws all of that out the window? How do you feel about that?
Right. We did submit testimony in opposition to that for many reasons, but I think underlying all of that is that, exactly as you said, that the counties should determine our own zoning code and follow our own plans rather than being mandated to do something. So we would not be supportive of that.
Thank you. And I just think we need to be vigilant on this and call our legislators and let them know how we feel, and who's ever watching in the public to do the same if you feel the same way that I do, that the county should be the one who decides minimum lot size, right? Anyway, one more question. So, Ala Moana used to be in my district, and I worked really hard in 2021 regarding the Ala Moana TOD plan. The next step would be the Ala Moana TOD zoning. It says here that that's going to be completed in 2031.
Vice Chair,
10 years.
she hasn't gone to that presentation yet on the TOD.
Okay, I can wait. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
If you could proceed on the TOD presentation.
Hi, Chair, committee members. Tim Streitz, Acting TOD Administrator. So the next up that would be coming before you is the East Kapolei TOD zoning. We have that anticipated for Q2 of this year. So we're currently finalizing the proposal, which includes state land use boundary amendment, zone changes, and TOD special district amendment. Our target is to go to Planning Commission by April 1st, and then that would be transmitted to you afterwards. This is a pretty key area in terms of serving the housing demand along the corridor. It represents 15% of the station, but has an outsized impact of about, anticipated to serve about a third of the housing needs along the corridor. After that, at the request, I believe, of Councilmember Cordero, we just added these kind of rough dates to get a sense of kind of the direction we're heading for the rest of the corridor that remains to be rezoned and wrapped into the TOD special district. So next up would be the airport TOD area, then Kalihi, downtown, and Ala Moana. Again, these are just rough estimates based on the current factors with staffing and staffing expertise to be able to handle that, as well as the complexity of each TOD neighborhood.
Is that your presentation?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go to Chair Waters because I know Councilmember Cordero is probably going to have some questions when she returns with regard to her district. Vice Chair Waters.
Thank you so much. No, I'm just curious. In your handout, the Ala Moana TOD plan was passed in September 2021, And the Alamo, which is the next step, the Ala Moana TOD zoning is pending, and it's scheduled for completion in 2031. So is that typical? It takes 10 years?
Well, again, it's based on our current staffing and staffing expertise to be able to handle these complex jobs, which zoning is a lot tougher, I guess, so to say, than planning. Planning comes in with kind of more the conceptual policy recommendations. Zoning is actually dealing with the entitlements and other factors like easements, unilateral agreements from prior zone changes that we have to deal with. But we have also been following the existing Skyline, I guess, service areas as a priority. So trying to get those land uses surrounding the stations under segment 1 and 2 of Skyline operations out there first, because they would have the impact most of the service. Whereas like Ala Moana can still benefit from an interim TOD permit, and that's what a lot of the development has been in the Ala Moana area, as you know.
I'm just curious. Well, you got Kalihi TOD plan and airport TOD plan, and the next step obviously is the zoning. So what actually is involved, and what can we expect with regard to the zoning process from both the TPP side as well as the council involvement?
I guess so. Immediate or like near term would be the package that we submit to Planning Commission, hopefully next month. Then that would be forwarded to council to review. That's in the case of East Kapolei TOD, that includes 3 bills: the state land use boundary amendment under 15 acres, some remnants agricultural land there, the TOD zoning, which is primarily changing to mixed use and incorporating the bonus densities and heights, as well as the TOD special district that also enables some of those bonuses. After that, or I guess just generally, as far as like how we approach the TOD zoning, we follow the adopted TOD plan by City Council, and then use that as our kind of starting point, as that provides us kind of the policy guidance. And then we dig down into the actual parcels and work with kind of the owners of what they want to do, if there's, through the request for comments period. If there's any changes, we make small tweaks to, I guess, what the plans had recommended. But generally, we follow the TOD plan guidance.
Well, thank you for that. To the extent possible, and to the extent that each individual council member wants to get involved in that process, please consider involving each council member, because personally, I would like to get involved with at least the Ala Moana area, which was in my district, as I said. But to the extent that the other council members want to be involved, I think that might be really helpful for you folks, especially when it comes to community engagement.
Definitely, totally agree. Like in the case of East Kapolei, we had reached out to Councilmember Tupola to see if she wanted to come to the community meeting. I think she was out of town that week. And then, of course, we obviously send out requests for comments too to the council member's office.
Councilmember Cordero.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I will have questions, and to the point of Council Chair Waters and Committee Vice Chair Waters, that would be absolutely, it would be great to have more planning. I know that with Aya Pearl City, we did see less people come out, but then we saw more people come out for Halava, and so it does make me a little sad that I may not be able to be here, that I won't be here for possibly the airport TOD zoning and Kalihi TOD zoning. So, but that's okay. I'll watch as a private citizen and testify. That's when I can testify. But I do have a question about the map, the flight maps, but the flight height maps. I know that for the years that I've been asking and the years that we've been discussing it, we were waiting from the FAA. I know as it relates to TOD zoning too, for the areas of airport and Kalihi, and including downtown TOD zoning. And I think we were together at a certain meeting, and I think we found out that we may have to come up with those maps ourselves. Would you be able to update that and how that will help maybe impact the 3 different plans that map impacts?
Sure, and again, that is one of like the typical kind of factors that go into the TOD zoning. So for those areas, TOD neighborhoods that you mentioned, the airport does have height restrictions, which is kind of like a superseding the county level zoning. The State Office of Planning and Sustainable Development, I believe, had contracted with the Hawaii Department of Transportation Airports Division to map out what those flight patterns and heights were. We were hoping to get more granular than, I guess, what was the end result. We had basically not been able to achieve the one engine inoperable scenario, which varies by the different airlines. So we kind of have a more generalized height map that we can go off of. And as far as our initial analysis, the TOD plan recommended heights for those neighborhoods mostly aligned. So maybe just some small tweaks there.
Okay, I know that when we were discussing with maybe certain developers, possibly in the Kalihi TOD and the downtown TOD area, it was brought up that DPP will have to come up with those FFA guided, like no-fly zone or height-restricted maps. So are we working on that to help then guide our zoning for downtown Kalihi and airport? Are you working on it?
No, we're not going to do that just because we're able to use what the Office of Planning and Sustainable Development and HDOT had created. We basically will use that to try and provide more realistic heights to the landowners in those areas, but it's ultimately on the landowner or developer to come in, check with the FAA and HDOT on what the precise heights are for their property, and then they develop around that or design around that.
I mean, and I know you know my frustration. You and I have been talking about this since I was staff, right? Going back and forth on waiting for either from HDOT and FAA, and then now we it's just been bounced back and forth. And I didn't ask about it the last maybe 6 months in this committee, but I figured since it's a new year, I should ask. And it's good to hear that we're going to be using the State Office of, I forgot what you just said, but that's new news to me, and I'm happy about that. And would I or the committee be able to receive that type of information or mapping?
Yes, they put it online.
Oh, okay, I'll look it up.
Interactive map, yeah.
Okay,
through
cool.
their GIS.
Oh, I like the interactive map. Okay, cool. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Councilmember Dos Santos Tan, any questions
Yes.
on the downtown?
Yes, and I actually want to start by following up on Councilmember Cordero's questions because they're very good and they do apply to Iwalei, Chinatown, and downtown. Why, if it's up to the private developer to verify the applicable height limit with the FAA, why is the burden on us to wait for the FAA to come up with their rules, then incorporate it into our plan and do all of this? Can't we simply just say, absent these FAA regulations, we think Iwalei should be 250 feet, or downtown should be 400 feet, or whatever the case may be? Why? This seems to me to be very similar to if it's in a flood zone or there's some subsoil condition that makes a really tall building impossible to build. We would study all of this and say for this particular parcel, because of these conditions, the height limit is thus this. Isn't the goal of planning just to sort of offer a broad overview? Like, why are we waiting for the FAA?
Right, so the planning would take into account, what those hazard areas are and try to kind of account for that and coordinate where the most intense development is outside of that. The zoning, because we haven't got to like Kalihi or airport yet, we were kind of just waiting and coordinating with the state OPSD and HDOT on that so that we could tailor the zoning to be more realistic. But yeah, like you mentioned, it's ultimately on the applicant or developer to do that. We didn't want to I guess, put 300 feet on there when they can only build to like 200 feet. Yeah,
But given that we've adopted the plans for Kalihi, for Ala Moana, for downtown, et cetera, a developer could come in with an IPDT permit, which they don't have to wait for these FAA rules. They don't need to wait for the rezoning of height. So why, again, are we waiting for this rather than just offering some sort of broad guidance?
Well, if the developers came in for like the IPDT in those areas that don't have the special district and zoning in place yet, they would still need to check with FAA and HDOT, just like they would if the zoning was there.
Yes, but why are we waiting before we offer our recommendations for in Ivalea, it shall be this, BMX 3, IMX, whatever, height of 250 feet? Why can't we just do that now?
We can, and that's what the plans do, but we're just not to those planning areas yet for our zoning. And so in the meantime, we're working in parallel with the state on their zoning to try to make sure they coincide with ours.
So I want to turn to a different area. So in both the Kalihi and downtown area TOD plans, if you look at table 6-1 in each of those plans, I don't expect for you to have it in front of you right now, but it gives a timeline for all of these things to be done. And it says within 1 year of adoption of the TOD plan, the land use ordinance and zoning map will be amended to bring the zoning into conformance with the land use designations and building density and height maximums in the plan. Was that 1 year estimate in the TOD plans that the council adopted in 2020 and 2017, was that overambitious?
Seems that way, yeah.
And is the holdup staffing, or is the holdup that it's so complicated that it takes 10 years to do? Because if it is staffing or some other thing, we would like to help to solve this. Can't we just give you a ton of money to farm it out to some consultant and come back within a year?
So we've typically relied on, we're a smaller program within the city. We've typically relied on collaborations with other city departments, state, federal agencies, and then also contractors. But of course, even with contractors, it takes a lot of staffing just to oversee those projects. So we are trying to build up the staff to our fully allotted staffing positions, but we're not there yet.
So how many total staffing positions do you have in this TOD shop?
I think it's about 7 or 8.
About 7 or 8, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 TOD area plans to be done, plus, you know, all of that is, do you need more help? Do you want more help? Blink twice.
Well, just to be clear, all the TOD plans are completed.
Sorry, for the rezonings.
Yeah,
that's what I meant.
It would be helpful, but again, I'm not in a position to say like we need more because we still are trying to fill some of the vacant positions. We need senior level staffing to do the type of complex work that we're doing, both from like the zone change standpoint as well as the infrastructure related projects to implement the TOD plans. And so that's been a challenge. We did have some recent luck being able to hire above the minimum to get a more senior level planner on board, but we haven't been able to proceed with filling the rest of the positions.
And I guess I'll close by saying the fact that it's taking 10 years is a little bit frustrating because we are working on downtown revitalization, a number of other things. We just introduced Resolution 26-39, which would just by right increase the density and things like that in the BMX4 zone, which only exists downtown. Like, we at the council are leading the cart forward on this, and I wish that resources were there so that we're not the ones that have to pull the cart and be the horses in that image.
No, yeah, I understand, and we have a plan to get it forward. We're working on beefing up staff expertise of the existing staff we have, having dedicated staff to working on this implementation. So I do anticipate that, just in that sense, we're going to become more efficient. And then The other variables would be like if we do get more staff that can contribute to these efforts, and these aren't the only thing we got going on related to TOD, that could, and hopefully will adjust down the dates that are tentatively on the schedule there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Vice Chair Waters.
Thank you so much. Just as a comment to what was said earlier about filling these senior level staffing positions, my understanding is that each position has a pay range, low and high, and we budget for the lower end of the pay range. Perhaps we should consider, especially for these types of positions, budgeting at the higher end, giving the department that flexibility to bring in these senior level folks. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, we're going to now take public testimony. Thank you. Clerks, do we have any in-person testifiers?
Chair, there are none.
Is there anyone else in the chamber who would like to testify on this matter? Seeing none, are there any testifiers standing by?
Chair, there are none.
Are there any other questions or discussion on these info briefings? If not, mahalo everyone for being here today. There being no further business, this meeting is adjourned.